Tonight with more on this developing story, former ambassador to the United Nations, Fox News contributor John Bolton. Mr. Bolton, good to see you.
Glad to be here.
Your reaction?
Well, I think what Iran is trying to do is use these harsh words and however many missiles they actually launch to try and brush back Israel and the United States from considering the use of military force against that nuclear program. But they're also engaged in a charm offensive, too, less visible but just as active, to try and get diplomacy going to provide further cover for them so they could say, no need for military force, we're in negotiation, remain calm. They've used this before very successfully.
All right, Israel's defense minister has hinted at the readiness of Israel to strike Iran. Condi Rice says the U.S. will defend the Gulf. So obviously people are prepared. I have a very strong indication and belief that I don't think Israel's going to wait much longer in light of the rhetoric. Do you expect that this is going to be fairly forthcoming in terms of Israel's response?
Well, look, the point here is that they fear, based on substantial evidence, that Iran is very close to having a deliverable nuclear weapons capability. And in a country as small as Israel, 2 or 3 nuclear devices means the end of the country. So if faced with an existential threat, yes, I think Israel will use force. They have not hesitated in the past. As recently as last September, they pulverized a North Korean reactor being built in the Syrian desert. And if they believe that Iran is as far along as I think Iran is, I don't doubt that they're looking at the use of force very, very seriously.
All right, let me bring a little politics into here, and I'm not asking for your political opinion, Ambassador, but more just to inform our audience and get your thoughts on Barack Obama, who once claimed that we're air raiding villages and killing civilians in Afghanistan, who said one time that it would be a profound mistake to use nuclear weapons under any circumstances, who talked about Iran being a tiny country and not a serious threat, and then he flipped and flopped and said it was a grave threat, and that he would meet without preconditions with Ahmadinejad on top of potentially invading Pakistan, an ally. When you hear all of this, what does it mean if Barack Obama becomes president for national security for the country in the Mideast?
Well, I suppose the best you could say was that he's grown incoherent as the days have gone by. But I think, honestly, his initial statements really are the best reflection of what he actually believes. And I think that means that he thinks that Iran has a sense of grievances against the United States and Israel, and that much of Iran's conduct is justified. So I don't see a President Obama being very sympathetic to an Israeli use of force.
Yeah, well, I just asked this. If Ahmadinejad continues to threaten Israel and their very existence and threatens to wipe them off the map, do they have any alternative but to strike before they get nuclear weapons?
I don't think so. I mean, when you do strategic analysis, it's an analysis of capabilities and intentions. We can hear what the intentions are, and it's not just Ahmadinejad. It's lots of other Iranian leaders as well, and we also have a pretty good idea of their developing capabilities. So either Israel strikes before the capability reaches fruition, or they are at the leadership of Iran's mercy, and I don't think that's the position the Jewish state wants to allow itself to be in.
Mr. Ambassador, welcome to the show. When did Obama ever say that he supported or agreed with what Iran was doing?
That's not what I said. My point is that he has exhibited a characteristic of many on the left in America and in Europe that think that Iran's grievances are the real source of its conduct. This pursuit of nuclear weapons has a lot more to do with its effort for hegemony in the Middle East and within Islam, as well as being directed against Israel and the United States. And negotiating with them and talking about their sense of grievance isn't going to divert them from that strategic objective.
You've said a number of statements over the last few months that either you believe the Bush administration is going to strike or that you would like if there were a first strike against Iran. Would that be an accurate reflection of your view?
No, it would not be an accurate reflection of my view. In fact, I've said most recently I don't think the Bush administration will use force. And I have always said, Alan, always said that the use of force against Iran's nuclear program is deeply unattractive. It's very risky. It's a hard job to do operationally. The reason that we're looking at the use of force is because the alternative, an Iran with nuclear weapons, is even more deeply unattractive.
You know, you have Maliki, our guy in Iraq, who said that he would not permit the United States to use Iraqi land or Iraqi airspace and waterways for an attack. and he says that diplomacy with Iran is probably the best way to go. He doesn't believe military force is a good idea at all. What does it tell you that Iraq, a country where we've lost American lives, that you cannot use our area as a staging place?
Well, frankly, it sounds a lot like the policy of the Bush administration, which keeps saying, despite all the evidence, that it thinks diplomatic tools will work to stop the Iranian nuclear program. I don't believe that, and I don't think there's any chance. After 5 years of experience, this is not a novel idea. The Europeans have been negotiating with Iran for over 5 years and have failed to dissuade them from their continued pursuit of nuclear weapons. So that's a view, I think, that might have been worth a little bit more aggressive activity 5 years ago, but isn't going to do anything today.
Let me ask you a question about Iraq, because I want to put up on the screen what the Iraqi
Don't you want to talk about Iran some more?
Well, no, we've talked a lot about Iran. I want to ask you a question about Iraq,
okay.
which is there something you want to say about Iran?
No, go ahead.
Okay. Iraqi National Security Advisor, who basically says this: we're unambiguously talking about their departure, meaning the United States. We're waiting impatiently for the day when the last foreign soldier leaves Iraq. Now, both John McCain and George Bush are on record as saying, if the Iraqi government asks us to leave, we're going to leave. Here you have the Iraqi government basically saying, we want a timeline, we want to get Americans out. So should they live up to their own words and listen to them?
Well, I think you've oversimplified what the Iraqi government is saying, but I think it is a basic fact that we are there with the permission of the Iraqi government that we created, after all, and helped put in place through representative elections. I think a lot of what's happening is domestic Iraqi politics, and I think that's a positive. They now have that kind of politics just as we do. The fact is, even the statements you've quoted go on to say they expect to have an American presence at bases in Iraq for years to come.
But they want a timeline to get the soldiers out. Should we listen to them?
That's not what they're saying, Alan, if you go through their entire statement.
Well, I did. Actually, I do have that quote that he did say that. All right, Ambassador, we thank you very much for being with us. Coming up.